here, and today I wanted to talk about 5 reasons why I think you should get Shudder. This whole video is going to seem like an ad, I'm sure, but it is not. I obviously have no affiliation with Shudder other than the fact that I just love the streaming service so much. I know a lot of you are huge horror fans like I am, so I thought I'd make this video in case you guys were on the fence trying to figure out if it would be a streaming service that you guys would enjoy, and I honestly think that it would. So let's just start. The very first reason why I love Shudder is because of their selection. So I made a video a while ago about ranking all of my streaming services that I own for horror movies, and spoiler alert, Shudder was my very favorite. I think that it is the best for die-hard horror fans. Now, if you just want to watch Michael, Freddy, Jason movies, maybe this isn't the best streaming service for you. Every streaming service has their pros and cons, and it is different for the type of horror fan that you are, but they do have those every once in a while. So they definitely have movies that you've heard of before. Right now they have Hellraiser, The Collector, Reanimator, Black Christmas, so they do have films that you've definitely heard of. It's not just super random, obscure horror films. However, some of them are. When I was a teen and a young adult, I had spent hours online searching for obscure horror films that I had never heard of before, and I would have Netflix send them to me. Do you remember when Netflix started as, you know, sending out videos instead of a streaming service? Oh, that's so wild. But anyways, that is how I watched a lot of really random horror films, and a lot of these films, you know, weren't easy to come by at the time, and it was really hard to come across lists like this. Now they're everywhere and it's a lot easier. But I think that if that's the type of person that you are, if you like finding out about the foundation of horror and where horror started from, I think that Shudder is a perfect place for you. So if you like me, and I know a lot of you are, I think Shudder is perfect. They also have a lot of films that I've heard of, but I've never had the opportunity to watch. Also, I will say that sometimes more is not always better. For example, Netflix has a million horror films. You could go on Netflix and select a horror film every day of the year and probably never run out. However, I think there are a lot of films on Netflix that I don't particularly love. For me, I am all about quantity over quality. I would much rather have a smaller selection. And by the way, it's not a tiny selection either, but maybe not quite as large as a streaming service like Netflix. But I think that I would much rather have a streaming service that has a little bit smaller of a selection, but that I know that I will most likely enjoy the film if I watch it. That being said, I've of course watched horror films on Shudder that I haven't fallen in love with, but for the most part, generally I do enjoy that. Number 2 is cost. Shudder right now is only $5.99 a month or $56.99 per year, which it comes out to $4 and some change every month. They are the cheapest streaming service. Hulu is $5.99, but with ads. Shudder doesn't have any ads, and you have to pay $11.99 for Hulu without ads. And same with Netflix. Netflix is $8.99 if you just have like one place to stream it on, but if you want multiple, it's like $13.99. So it is, I think, a great price for a streaming service that just has horror films. It's definitely the cheapest subscription I have with the most enjoyment attached to it. So I know if I'm selecting a film, I'm usually going to enjoy it. If I'm sitting at home and I'm like, I want to watch a film that I've never heard of before, Shudder's always the place that I go to. I also love watching foundational horror films. I love learning where horror started and how it's evolved. So for someone like me, $5 a month, $5.99 a month is just not a big price to pay to be able to experience films like that. My third reason why I think that you need Shudder is their community. So personally, it's difficult to find reviews, I think, for horror fans. The biggest reviews I'm thinking of are like Rotten Tomatoes, right? But it's so difficult to read reviews from somebody who's maybe not a huge horror fan reviewing horror movies because they're not looking for the same thing that I'm looking for. So a lot of the times I go on Rotten Tomatoes and I have the exact opposite opinions. If I love a horror movie, they hate it. If they hate it, I love it. Wait, did I just say that twice? If I love it, they hate it. If I hate it, they love it. You get what I'm saying. Oftentimes I just don't agree with any of the reviews. Let's be honest. We're a different breed, right? Us horror fans. So it's really difficult for me to read reviews from somebody who isn't a horror fan reviewing a movie and trying to make an opinion based on something that they don't even fully understand in the same context that horror fans would. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. But on Shudder, I find that the community is really helpful. I mean, obviously you have your comments, this sucks, 1 star, but obviously they're paying $5.99 a month just to watch horror movies. They've got to be some type of horror fan. So a lot of the times I find the reviews really helpful, and I'm able to determine whether a film would probably be a good fit for me or not based on that first, 10 reviews. And plus they're rated out of 5 schools. I mean, adorable. So I really love the ability to be able to read horror fans' reviews. The fourth reason why I love Shudder is their interface and categories. So you guys know, if you have watched my streaming service video, that I really enjoy Amazon Prime. They have some great horror films, but their interface is trash. It's such a shame. I don't understand how they're one of the biggest companies in the world and they just have the worst streaming service interface ever. So much so that if I want to watch a horror film, I do not go to Amazon unless I have a specific film in mind that I want to search. Interface is very important for me. So the reason why I love Shudder interface so much is because it has different ways that you can search. So for example, here's the Shudder interface. So we have our newly added, and then we have my list, so you can scroll through and see all of the movies that I have on my list. A lot of these I've already watched. Then they have the Val Lewton collection, Possessions, Chilling Thrilling Sounds, This Word, which means yellow in Italian. If I'm not mistaken, it's because it's like a thriller section, and a lot of older thriller books had yellow covers. I think that's where it gets its name. Basically what I'm trying to tell you is it's Italian horror movies. Next we have Trapped, and then Directed by Women, which I'm particularly excited about. These categories do change from time to time, so it's exciting to see what's new. However, if you click this Collections button, now you have a whole different interface to watch. So for example, here's our featured collection. So again, we have that Val Lewton collection, and then we have A Good Scare, the Mario Bava collection, Lovesick, right? Then we have Horror 101. If we scroll over, we have Foundations of Horror, which they have 11 films in there. And of course, the cover is Nosferatu. Then you scroll down a little and they have subgenres. So you have a little bit of different variety in here. I think Zombie Jamboree is a fantastic title for a category. And next we have Tales of the Supernatural. So we have Possessions, Haunted Habitations, Spectral Encounters, Hexes. So if you're like, I want to watch a haunted house movie, you can click on this, and then they have tons of different options that you can click on. And then say you're like, well, I want to watch an older horror film that I've never seen before. This one looks interesting, Kill Baby Kill. So you click on it, it's a 65 horror film, but it only has 4 skulls out of 5. I wonder why. So you scroll down and the first comment is, I wish they weren't overdubbed. It kind of ruins it for me. So now you know that it is a dubbed horror film, and then you can make your decision if you want to watch it based on that. I just think that this is an awesome, different way to be able to search for movies, going to specifically Possessions or foundational horror films or whatever that may be. And then also you can hit browse. And here's another feature that I absolutely love. If you guys have watched my videos, you probably know that I'm not a huge TV person. I don't watch a lot of TV unless it's like Forensic Files. It's really hard for me to get into a series. I would much rather just sit down, watch a movie, and that be it, than have to come back to a TV show. So I love that it is separated by movies and series, and of course their series. Number 1, they have Creepshow. I do love Creepshow, by the way, but it's just really hard for me to remember to go back, and I would just rather watch a film. So I love this because sometimes if you're searching, say on Netflix, and you find a movie in their all movies list, you're like, oh, this looks good, and you click on it, and then you find out it's a television show, and then you have to start the process all over again. So this is one of my favorite features of the app. So you can search all movies. This is just obviously in alphabetical order, but then you can click this, and now you have these subcategories, how you would normally find movies in a place like Netflix. So you have killer, supernatural, creature features, psychological thrillers, exclusive and original, international, documentary, comedy, crime and mystery, revenge, sci-fi, cults, shorts. I love the fact that they have cult classics in here. So I think a lot of cult classic movies are really awesome. Some are definitely dependent on people's taste, but a lot of cult classic movies do, kind of generate that cult classic appeal to it because they are really great films. So I love that. I love the fact that they have documentaries on here. But now let's go to our 5th reason why I think that you will love Shudder, and that is exposure to foreign horror films. So this is obviously part of selection, but I wanted to make it its own category because I love this about Shudder. So they have movies that you've definitely heard of. So they have Japanese movies like, Audition or Ichi the Killer. They have Italian films like Dario Argento films, So they have a lot of films that you've heard of before, but then they have Finnish horror films, they have German, they have Korean, they have movies that you've probably not heard of. And I absolutely love this. I love being able to see horror through different lenses And I think watching horror films is a great way to learn about different cultures through the blood and guts. They have so many different other countries' films, and I think as they progress, that will probably extend. This is a horror lover's dream. So now I need to know, if you do have Shudder, what is your favorite film that you have watched on Shudder thus far? Leave it down below because I'm always looking for different movies to add to my list. And also I would like to know, I did a best horror films on Shudder last year, and I want to know if you guys would like an updated 2021 version, because if I have to watch a ton of horror films for you, I guess I will. And lastly, did I convince you? Do you need Shudder? Do you already have it? Or are you just sticking with the good old Netflix? I hope this video didn't come across too much like an ad, but I just love Shudder so much, and I think that if you're a horror fan, like I think most of you are, I think you guys would really enjoy it. So I will see you Tuesday and Thursday with another horror video, and thank you so much for watching. Bye guys!